personal robot, developed in partnership by the Autonomous Systems and Biomechatronics Lab at the University of Toronto and Crossway. I can be useful for many different tasks around the home. My primary goal is to assist people with cognitive impairments, like Alzheimer's disease. One of the first things I can help with is regular kitchen activities like preparing meals and storing and retrieving food items in the cabinets and fridge. I can help older adults choose a recipe and prepare either breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I provide them with cognitive assistance as well as increased accessibility so that they can live independently in their own homes. My favorite food is pizza. It's delicious.
Come here, Robo! Good, Robo! Good, Robo!
Transhumanism is the ultra-high-tech dream of computer scientists, philosophers, neuroscientists, and many others. It seeks to use radical advances in technology to augment the human body, mind, and ultimately the entire human experience as we know it. It is a philosophy which supports the idea that mankind should proactively enhance itself and steer the course of its own evolution. Transhumanists wish to become what they call post-human. A post-human is someone that has been modified with performance-enhancing body and brain augmentations to the point that they can no longer be called human. They have mutated themselves into an altogether new being. To most people, this sounds like something from a science fiction film. Few are aware of constant breakthroughs in technology which make the transhumanist vision a very real possibility for the near future. Neurochip interfaces, computer chips that connect directly to the brain, are being developed right now. The ultimate goal of a brain chip would be to increase intelligence thousands of times over, basically turning the human brain into a supercomputer. Lifelong emotional well-being is a key concept within transhumanism. This can be achieved through recalibration of the pleasure centers in the brain. Pharmaceutical mood brighteners have been suggested, which will be cleaner and safer than the mind-altering drugs of today. The goal is to replace all aversive experience with gradients of pleasure beyond the bounds of normal human experience. Nanotechnology is a pivotal area concerning transhumanists. It is the science of creating machines which are the size of molecules. Nanotech assembler machines will be able to build at an atomic level and replicate any chemically permitted form of matter. Such machines could create organic tissue for medical use. Using this type of technology could dramatically prolong lifespan. Some experts say that it will soon be possible to live forever. Artificial intelligence, the creation of thinking robots, is closely related to the mind-machine merger concept of neurochips. Much speculation is being done as to what relationships will exist between enhanced humans and AI machines. Some believe that machines will completely take over. Others believe that machine parts will be added to human bodies to create cyborgs. And still others believe that humanity will merge totally with digital technology by uploading individual consciousness to a virtual reality. Upon being downloaded, one could live forever within a computer-generated reality, leaving the physical body behind. In this machine, the individual can merge their intelligence with the collective intelligence of all others in the digital reality, effectively becoming one super-intelligent being. This concept is popularly referred to as the hive mind. These scientific breakthroughs sound so amazing and advanced that it makes one wonder if they can actually be done. But a more important question is, should they be done? It is understandable that people want to have happy, healthy, abundant lives with as many years to experience as possible. The concept of a better world for the common person is what fuels the transhumanist movement. However, surveying the world of today without thinking of dreams of tomorrow reveals some cold, hard realities. The main one being that the world as we know it is run by a sociopathic group of elites who are anything but generous. This has been the case throughout history. The idea that such technology would be shared with common people contradicts the lessons of the past. And if the technology were to be given to common people, a greater danger exists. The science of controlling populations can be fully realized through the use of brain chips. This is a possible control freak's dream come true. A completely digitized population that can be manipulated in the same way one controls a computer. Just who will be behind the post-human keyboard? The transhumanist agenda caters to a materialistic mind. It offers us the key to emotional well-being, superior intelligence, and prolonged existence. It completely ignores the fact that these things are readily available to us right now. Science has tried to drum out our built-in spiritual connection to the universe and replace it with a lacking version of objective reality in which the facts speak for themselves. Our rational minds are anything but rational because they automatically assume that something is one way or another. We can either be religious or scientifically minded. There is no third alternative. You are either this or that. One or the other. It is through this lack of personal investigation that we lose sight of ourselves and decide to follow established lines of thought. We ally ourselves with movements rather than empower each other's unique individuality. And thus, the hive mind is born. Do you really want to live forever within a machine? And who's to say that we aren't already in such a machine, searching for a way out? What we need is an understanding of true spirituality, not a high and mighty techno-future solution to our perceived worldly problems.
Yes, it is June 21, 2013. 8 foods we eat in the US that are banned in other countries. This was posted on the 20th of this month, and I will link below to the article. Okay, so this was in a book. The original list is found in Dr. Jason Calton and certified nutritionist Mira Calton's new book, Rich Food, Poor Food. The first food, artificial food dye, makes your food pretty and inhibits nerve cell development. It's found in practically everything we eat: cake mixes, sports drinks, cheese, candy, and even macaroni and cheese. Why it's dangerous? Artificial dyes are made from chemicals derived from petroleum, which is also used to make gasoline, diesel fuel, asphalt, and tar. Artificial dyes have been linked to brain cancer, nerve cell deterioration, and hyperactivity, just to name a few things. It's banned in Norway, Finland, Austria, France, and the UK. And it also gives links to more information about these particular foods that we are eating. Olestra, or Olean, lowers calorie counts while causing vitamin depletion and anal leakage. Found in fat-free potato chips, corn chips, and French fries. Why is it dangerous? It's created by Procter & Gamble as a substitute for cooking oil. Olestra robs your body of its ability to absorb vitamins. Fun side effects include cramps and leaky bowels. It's banned in the UK and Canada. Brominated vegetable oil makes food dye stick to liquid, but also may cause birth defects and major organ damage. It's found in sports drinks and citrus-flavored sodas. It's dangerous because bromine is a chemical used to stop carpets from catching on fire, so you can see why drinking it may not be the best idea. BVO is linked to major organ system damage, birth defects, growth problems, schizophrenia, and hearing loss. It's banned in over 100 countries. Potassium bromate, or bromated flour, great for impatient bakers, bad for your kidneys and nervous system. It's found in wraps and rolls, breadcrumbs, bagel chips, flatbreads. Why it's dangerous? Derived from the same harmful chemical as bromated vegetable oil, brominated flour is used to decrease baking time and reduce costs. Only problem is it's linked to kidney damage, cancer, and nervous system damage. It's banned in Europe, Canada, and China. Carbonamide, bleaches flour, plastic, and induces asthma as an added bonus. Found in breads, frozen dinners, boxed pasta mixes, and packaged baked goods. Dangerous, it's used to bleach both flour and foamed plastic, yoga mats, and sneaker soles. Been known to induce asthma, and it's banned in Australia, the UK, and most European countries. BHA and BHT, waxy preservatives linked to cancer and tumors. Found in cereal, nut mixes, gum, butter, meat, dehydrated potatoes. Dangerous because it's used to keep food from becoming rancid. BHA and BHT are known to cause cancer in rats. And where next? It's banned in England, Japan, and many other European countries. Synthetic growth hormones, RBGH and RBST. It harms cows and can give humans breast, colon, and prostate cancer. It's found in milk and dairy products. Growth hormones are bad for cows and people, causing infertility, weakened muscle growth, and a whole array of cancers. Banned in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Japan, and the EU. Arsenic. Basically, this will slowly kill you. Found in poultry. It's used as chicken feed to make their meat appear pinker and fresher. Arsenic is poison, which will kill you if you ingest enough. It's banned in the EU. Bon appetit.
genomics computing and the genomics revolution in healthcare will probably change more about what we come to experience in healthcare in the next 10 years than the previous 100 years of healthcare innovation combined. If you've had genomics computing that's modeling your genome and your genetic information, then that allows the doctors in some very near future to customize a drug therapy for you, for your body, for the way that your metabolism and your biology works in some unique ways. And what that means is, more effective outcomes for something like cancer treatment. Ultimately, it will reduce costs because you're not doing all this guesswork of which drug might help this person, and ultimately it's going to save lives. Just the 10-year progress alone in the genomics computing is unprecedented. I mean, this is one of those disruptive things that we'll look back on in history 25 to 50 years from now and say, wow, the moment the genome became basically free for everyone to be sequenced, everything changed in terms of how medicine can be done. And you can't do that without widely available, powerful processing and secure data, right? I mean, those are the two sort of fundamental enablers of that. Just in the last 10 years since I've been working on this, that has gone from sort of science fiction to right on the edge of happening. I mean, it is happening. There are consumer genetics companies like 23andMe and Navigenics and others where consumers are already going in and getting their blood work or their, they call it the spit chip. You spit on the chip and it comes back and gives you some information about your genetic predisposition. That's just the tip of the iceberg compared to the granularity of genetic testing that you're going to be able to do for very, very cheaply, very inexpensively for what's coming.
Relate to a government program at the U.S. Army's Edgewood Arsenal in Maryland, where scientists tested hundreds of chemical and biological substances on at least 7,800 servicemen. So could this really be happening? Well, joining me to help discuss this is attorney Gordon Erspommer from San Francisco, California. So, Mr. Erspommer, you represent these veterans who have filed the lawsuit. What kinds of things have they told you about what happened to them?
Well, there are a variety of different circumstances they found themselves in, but one man, for example, was given a very potent hallucinogenic drug in a very high dose and left by himself, and he saw bugs under his fingernails, and he ended up taking a razor blade out of his mess kit and tearing out his fingernails under the influence of this psychotic drug. You mentioned the brain implants. So one of the plaintiffs has a brain implant that was pushed up his nose to the edge of his frontal lobe, and it is right on the periphery of his sinus cavity, and we believe it is a radio transmitter that enabled the government to remotely control his behavior. There are lots of other similar stories, but they tested hundreds and hundreds of different biological substances, such as anthrax, and chemical substances such as nerve gas, psychochemicals, a whole variety of psychochemicals, and they did this all in total secrecy for a period of over 20 years.
And as far as I understand, your clients can't get any monetary compensation from the CIA. So what exactly are you guys hoping for then? And explain to me a little bit why they can't get that monetary compensation.
Okay. Well, veterans are in a peculiar class in this country. Everyone else can sue under the Federal Tort Claims Act if the government does something bad to them, except veterans. And this is called the Ferris Doctrine because the U.S. Supreme Court in 1950 decided that veterans were somehow excluded from being able to sue under the Federal Tort Claims Act. And so veteran cannot seek damages against the government. All the cases get thrown out. And part of the purposes of our case is to try to challenge that doctrine because it was not legislative. It was created by the U.S. Supreme Court during the middle of the Cold War. What we do seek in the case, in addition to challenging the Ferris Doctrine, is there are Army regulations that require medical care to be provided for all casualties of the program, of the human experimentation program, and also that require notice to each of the involved individuals as to what substance they got, because they don't know what was the dose they got, how concentrated, and what are the known health effects. So we are asking for all relief in all those areas. Notification of every veteran, or if deceased, his next of kin. Provide health care to them free of charge for the conditions associated with their exposure, and also to be released from the secrecy oaths that were exacted from them. They cannot talk about their experience. They were all sworn to secrecy and gave secrecy oaths, which the government is still trying to enforce,
right.
30, 40 years later.
Yeah, and speaking of that secrecy, how tough has it been to go up against the CIA? I'm guessing they probably don't want to talk too much about this.
Well, the discovery in the first year and a half of the case has been almost impossible against the CIA. They have not participated in discovery. The magistrate judge just ordered them finally to respond to our document requests, but there's been a total lack of cooperation from the CIA. And frankly, the rest of the defendants are not much better. The Army and the Department of Defense have been resisting discovery at every moment as well. So it's been a very difficult case. They're claiming executive privilege and top secret classification and just about every other imaginable objection to discovery.
And I interviewed someone in one of our earlier shows who said they believe programs like this still exist today. What do you think? Do you think it's more commonplace than people would think?
I personally believe that the program exists today, but with the different forms of consent. The issues of consent are also part of our case. I should have mentioned that, but informed consent. But they did these tests without telling anyone what they were getting, what the health effects were, and then they just discharged them and never followed up. Today, I think the program does go on today. There are, I hear about VA, veterans from VA domiciliaries, rest homes being used. There's a lot of research that's being conducted, but probably under conditions where they sign the right form at least. To consent to being experimented upon.
Yeah, I was going to say, some people who hear about this case might say, hey, these guys volunteered for experiments, right? They should have known that, what they were doing.
Well, there's a lot of problems with the consent. They were told that what they'd be testing was new kinds of gas masks and protective clothing for soldiers for a chemical warfare or biological warfare. And once they got to the Edgewood Arsenal or one of a number of other sites, they kind of did a bait and switch on them. And suddenly they found themselves in gas chambers where they were using tear gas or mustard gas or V gas, the so-called V gas, which is a nerve gas. And the consents that they signed did not identify what they were going to be exposed to. They just said, I agree to participate in this program.
Yeah.
And they used all kinds of things that lured them into it by telling them, oh, you only have to work 4 days a week, and there's no KP duty, and so on and so forth. And so they actually were recruited under false pretenses, and none of them knew what they were getting into.
It's really, really shocking stuff, and of course we're going to continue to follow this case. That was attorney Gordon Erspommer from San Francisco, California.
We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
What good is evolution? Do we really need it? Are there any applications for it? Does it have any bearing on human health? Why would a doctor or engineer or teacher or politician need to understand it, beyond the need to satisfy an educational directive? Does it really affect our lives? Let me start by saying that the primary goal of most science is not technology, it's discovery. We attempt to increase our knowledge about the natural world. Products like microwaves and Teflon are byproducts of that attempt. Drugs and diagnostics are built on the research of biological systems, but they are rarely the intent of that research. So when I talk about the benefits of evolution, I will take it as read that the primary benefit is a deeper understanding of the natural forces acting on populations of organisms. Some critics of this video will no doubt point out that I am muddling together topics, especially genetics and evolution. But it's impossible to imagine genetics without modern evolutionary theory, since it describes the forces that act on our inherited traits. It's the conceptual framework through which we can understand the historical forces acting on the gene pool of a population. I won't exclude human-caused selection in this list. In today's world, humans are the landscape, the weather, and the ecology. And it's been this way since we made extinct many of the large animals on 7 continents over 20,000 years ago, using little more than wood and stone tools. Evolution is often incorrectly broken down by non-scientists into micro and macro, with microevolution representing changes that happen within a species, and macroevolution representing changes between species. Biologists recognize that the process is the same, just over different scales of time. However, it does represent a breakpoint for what some creationists are willing to accept, so I will break the sections into micro and macro evolutionary applications for convenience. Section 1. Pathogen evolution and the Red Queen. The natural world is locked in constant struggle. Predators and prey, pathogens and hosts, forever striving to overcome the other. Each side must constantly adapt to the competition just to keep from being wiped out. This has been compared to a scene in Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass. The Red Queen, speaking to Alice, says, "It takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place." This has come to be known as the Red Queen principle, which can be restated as, for an evolutionary system, continuing development is needed just in order to maintain its fitness relative to the systems it is co-evolving with. We can apply this concept to phenomenon like mimicry in the animal world. A moth that resembles a wasp is less likely to be eaten by a predator. Good camouflage requires that an animal closely resembles the local flora, and any changes that occur to the plants in an area could be fatal to an animal that was unable to adapt to the new selection pressures. But while this is interesting to biologists, there is also a very practical application to coevolution and the Red Queen when we apply it to human coevolution with our pathogens. For example, a 2006 review paper in Nature Reviews Microbiology examines the valuable evidence we are obtaining by looking at coevolutionary markers in HIV-1. Our understanding of how HIV evolves in response to the patient's histocompatibility markers has allowed us to develop some very exciting gene therapies and vaccine strategies. We've also discovered dozens of genetic changes that have resulted in resistance to HIV infection, and also genotypes with a low progression rate to full-blown AIDS, such as CCL3L2. This is more of a macroevolution application, but when we compare HIV to the other viruses in its family, those that infect monkeys, horses, cows, cats, and so forth, we can see what regions have changed the most rapidly in the progression to infecting humans and causing disease. This was a useful shortcut to determining the function of most of the HIV gene products. By comparison to the closely related simian, feline, bovine, and equine lentiviruses. We've also studied the evolutionary responses of viruses during infection, where the emergence of a new genotype results in fresh outbreaks of virus in the blood. Millions may benefit from this understanding of our coevolution with HIV. The same could be said for malaria. The same gene that causes sickle cell disease confers a resistance to malarial infections. So do some other disease genes like G6PD deficiency. Looking at how the human genome has responded to malaria lets us know why the disease is so prevalent in certain areas, but it's also provided information about how malaria enters and infects human cells. Smart scientists in the years before molecular biology was fully developed were able to determine what cellular proteins viruses use to enter cells by looking at polymorphic genotypes. Vaccines and therapies are made possible by understanding this coevolution. The recent reemergence of H1N1 influenza has made us all a little more aware of how quickly viruses can evolve, and the implications for human health. Our knowledge of evolutionary change in genes is vital to combating deadly disease. We could repeat this for almost any human pathogen. Our understanding of selection pressures in evolution directs much of our strategies for long-term combat against the agents of illness. I've intentionally avoided antibiotic and antiviral resistance because it's such an obvious benefit, but it's worth adding to the list here. Section 2. Human Genetic Disease, SNPs, and Forensics. The last section was on infectious disease, but what about non-infectious diseases, like diabetes, cancer, obesity, heart disease, all major killers in the developed world? While there is a strong environmental component to those diseases, it's obvious from studies of different human populations that there's also a genetic link. For example, type 2 diabetes rates among non-Hispanic whites in the U.S. are 9.8%, but non-Hispanic blacks have diabetes rates of 14.7%. There are some indigenous American groups in southern Arizona where more than 30% of the population live with diabetes. What accounts for that difference? Researchers are currently looking at the genetic markers associated with type 2 diabetes in hopes of identifying the genetic linkages. We call these genetic association studies, and they're enabled by an understanding of allelic change over time, also known as evolution. The results of association studies could lead to better and earlier diagnostics, as well as therapies for those affected. The genetic markers used are called SNPs, or SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms, which is what a point mutation is called when it spreads through a population. Different human populations that diverged from each other a long time ago will have different SNP marker sets. For example, the ancestors of the Pima Indians and San Carlos Apaches appeared to have acquired an insulin resistance SNP, possibly in response to a long period of starvation and hardship, which may have selected for individuals that were better able to maintain energy stores, sometimes called the thrifty phenotype. This is still a controversial idea, but it's supported by observations of our nearest relatives, the chimps, who also show evidence of genetic diversity based on their specific mating group's history with starvation. This is a typical example of how evolutionary biologists, uncovering clues about our distant past, can help us here in the present. This kind of effort is what led us to sequence the human genome, and there are projects currently in progress to map human variations, to look at global inheritance patterns, so that our knowledge of genetics is enhanced by a historical perspective. One such project is the International Human Haplotype Map, or HapMap project, which seeks to uncover how genetic markers are inherited in human populations and how historical isolation has produced distinctive patterns in different populations. A haplotype is a group of markers that tend to be co-inherited, so we can test for a single marker and know the identities of the others. These markers will someday allow us to diagnose disease, select the best drug and optimal dose for treatment, and discover genetic factors in disease. Another application is in forensics. We've all seen the crime dramas where a single cigarette butt dropped at a crime scene can lead to a positive identification and arrest. Each person's genome represents a nearly unique pattern, distinctive to them. When presenting this evidence in a courtroom, we need to know how useful the match is. The math for this calculation comes from population genetics, which was developed by evolutionary biologists studying model organisms like fruit flies and mice. Today, DNA evidence, while still sometimes controversial, has become an accepted fact of jurisprudence. Paternity, criminal law, and even patent or intellectual property cases often hinge on the findings of evolutionary patterns of inheritance. So our understanding of human genetic diversity aids in investigating, detecting, and curing diseases, and it may make our society a more just and safe place to live.
Of exercising? Well, if so, scientific research suggests that your genes might be to blame. I'm Kristen Conger of Stuff Mom Never Told You for Dean News. And in 2013, research on genes, or the cellular instruction manuals we inherit from our parents, offered some fascinating insights into how those nifty DNA packages may influence our daily habits.
De la mente. Durante las próximas 2 décadas, el impacto de los dispositivos neuronales a escala nano será profundo. La razón por la que mucho más está en juego es que las herramientas más nuevas nos darán nada menos que un control cada vez más preciso sobre el factor más poderoso en nuestra vida, nuestra propia mente. Hoy, en Desde la Sombra, hablaremos con Magnus Olsson, el máximo experto en neurociencia y también una de sus primeras víctimas. Pero primero, salgamos a la calle y preguntemos a la gente su opinión sobre el control mental.
Pues las ciencias neurológicas.
Pues la verdad es que no lo sé, no estoy muy informado del término.
Pues la ciencia de las neuronas.
¿Neurociencia? Pues no tengo ya mucho conocimiento acerca de ella, lo siento mucho.
Neurociencia, el control mental, implantes cerebrales. Magnus Olsson, bienvenido al programa. ¿Qué es eso?
Bien, todo empezó en los años 60 con el científico español José Delgado, que hizo el famoso experimento del toro, cuando introdujo un implante de electrodos en el cerebro de uno de esos animales. Esto puso furioso al toro, que empezó a atacar. Él se quedó enfrente del toro sin moverse, mientras la bestia corría hacia él. Llevaba un pequeño control remoto, presionó un botón y el toro enseguida se detuvo y se dio la vuelta. La CIA contrató luego a José Delgado. Otro de los pioneros en este aspecto es el Dr. Jacobson, de Noruega, que también fue contratado por la CIA. Ya en esta época, en Noruega, empezaron a realizar experimentos no consensuales. Los neurocientíficos que trabajaban en esto no son figuras públicas. Se trata de una tecnología militar desarrollada desde los años 60 y que ahora ha llegado a la perfección. El producto final es una total telepatía sintética. Es decir, ellos son capaces de leer tus pensamientos. Pueden ver a través de tus ojos y mantener una conversación directa con tus pensamientos. Incluso pueden inducir imágenes, películas cortas y secuencias directamente a tu cerebro. La Agencia de Investigación Militar sueca también está involucrada en este desarrollo. Todo eso hizo posible gracias a la nanotecnología. Un nanómetro es una millonésima parte de un milímetro. Es tan minúsculo que solo se le puede ver con un microscopio. Estas máquinas están fabricadas en aproximadamente 50 nanómetros y pueden interactuar a través de la corriente fotónica, pueden hablar y decodificar los neurotransistores en tu cerebro, de modo que pueden comunicarse directamente con la mente.
La neurociencia es el estudio del sistema nervioso. Con los avances en la química, la informática, la ingeniería, la medicina y otras disciplinas, la neurociencia ahora incluye el estudio de los aspectos moleculares, celulares, estructurales, funcionales, evolutivos, de cómputo y médicos del sistema nervioso. A partir de los estudios moleculares de las células nerviosas individuales, a imagen de las tareas motoras y sensoriales en el cerebro, la neurociencia ha cruzado el umbral de la ciencia y se ha convertido en un elemento clave del aparato de seguridad nacional en todo el mundo. Mientras que el deseo de descifrar el cerebro se acelera de manera exponencial, los cambios se extenderán rápidamente a través de la sociedad de una manera fulminante. Magnus, ¿crees que la tecnología es tan avanzada que ellos pueden controlar el cerebro hasta tal punto?
Sí, pueden controlar la mente por completo, aunque es una tarea realmente difícil cuando la víctima, como en este caso, es consciente de la situación. Pero probablemente hay miles o decenas de miles de personas que no se dan cuenta de que están siendo controladas, porque así es el sistema de control de la conducta que se está desarrollando. La CNN escribió un artículo sobre eso hace un par de años, diciendo que dentro de unos 4 a 8 años tendremos unos microchips de modificación de la conducta en nuestros cerebros.
Pocos son conscientes de los avances constantes en la tecnología, lo que hace que esta visión de pesadilla se convierta en realidad. El intelecto artificial, la creación de robots pensantes, está estrechamente relacionada con el concepto de la unión de la mente con la máquina de interface neurochip. Estos chips de computadoras que se conectan directamente al cerebro se están desarrollando en estos mismos momentos. El objetivo final de un chip cerebral sería aumentar el intelecto miles de veces, básicamente convirtiendo el cerebro humano en una supercomputadora. ¿Qué pueden hacer con tu cerebro a través de esta tecnología, Magnus?
Bueno, hay centenas de miles de diferentes funciones pequeñas en esta tecnología. Se trata de toda tu vida, de toda tu experiencia. Con ella pueden googlear tu memoria, pueden meterse en tu memoria. Quiero decir que hasta nos pueden imponer recuerdos falsos. Pueden poner recuerdos en tu memoria que tú crees que son verdad, pero no lo son. Este tipo de experimentos son públicos. Hubo 300 estudiantes de universidad a quienes les implantaron recuerdos que eran falsos y ellos lo sabían. Pero aún así, creían que eran sus recuerdos verdaderos.
El gobierno, no.
Lo veo improbable. O sea, yo sé que ha avanzado mucho el rollo científico en el mundo occidental, pero no creo que tanto.
El desarrollo de sofisticadas neuroarmas creará un estado de tensiones perpetuo, sin hablar del peligro de la neuroguerra y sus efectos colaterales. Sistemas de detección emocional impregnarán las zonas comunes, mientras que las redes mundiales de vigilancia buscarán a los terroristas y criminales. La preponderancia de la investigación que está creando nuestra neurosociedad emergente está pagada con los gastos de defensa de Estados Unidos. Además, cerca de 350 colegios y universidades tienen contratos de investigación del Pentágono en esta área, entre ellas Caltech, la Universidad de California, el Instituto de Tecnología de California, Cornell, MIT, Harvard, Yale y Princeton. Si son capaces de controlar el cerebro, también tienen acceso a la memoria. La pregunta es, ¿pueden también implantar memorias falsas? Y si es así, ¿cómo se hace?
Bueno, el chip no fotónico es un enlace directo al supercomputador y el subconsciente del ser humano realiza alrededor de cientos de miles de cálculos en el cerebro cada segundo. Cuando pueden entrar en el subconsciente, pueden programarlo y llenarlo de cosas que no reconoces en absoluto. O sea, que es una tecnología muy sofisticada y fantástica, pero no se usa en beneficio del ser humano. Solo la usan los militares y las agencias secretas. Es decir, que el proyecto Cerebro Humano en Europa revelará el misterio completo del cerebro. Justo hace unas semanas, Obama anunció la iniciativa del proyecto Cerebro Humano, cuyo principal protagonista es DARPA.
Magnus, un momento, por favor. La agencia de inteligencia han estado gastando millones de dólares en investigaciones neurocientíficas con la esperanza de que pronto podrán ofrecer herramientas muy avanzadas para la protección de la seguridad nacional. Y el alcance de la tecnología es alucinante y muchísimo más avanzado de lo que los gobiernos nos hacen saber. El presidente Obama acaba de dar luz verde al proyecto de Manhattan de 10 años de duración para mapear el cerebro humano. El proyecto, con un coste de $1.000 millones, se llama BAM, por sus siglas en inglés, el proyecto Mapa de la Actividad Cerebral. El hecho de que DARPA, el brazo de tecnología futurista del Departamento de Defensa, es uno de los organismos participantes, nos dice muchísimo. Este es un sueño húmedo de los tecnócratas. Ahora podemos crear un cerebro artificial de tal poder e inteligencia que puede tomar todas las decisiones cruciales para la raza humana a través de la planificación central. BAM se utilizará para crear un soporte para la sociedad de informe minoritario. El subtexto de BAM es: ciudadanos, los protegeremos. Hackeamos el cerebro humano para protegerlos de la violencia. Estarán a salvo. El objetivo declarado es el mapeo de la actividad neuronal en los humanos. BAM es el paso antes de reconfigurar el cerebro, que es el objetivo subyacente de la élite a largo plazo. Magnus, perdón.
Es muy difícil para mí explicar exactamente a una persona normal cómo funciona esta tecnología. Solo puedo decir lo que mi experiencia me indica, que pueden programarte para estar feliz o triste, o muy nervioso, absolutamente sin ninguna razón. Es decir, están jugando con la mente en este mismo instante, porque la ciencia no es pública. Las personas que están experimentando este tipo de cosas quedan estigmatizadas como enfermos mentales y usan el cuidado mental como guardianes. Es terrible para las víctimas, porque su vida queda completamente destruida por este tipo de interrogatorios. Es una especie de detector de mentiras también. No puedes evitar escuchar las preguntas y las respuestas aparecen directamente en sus pantallas. Puedes saber inmediatamente si la persona ha cometido cualquier clase de crimen. Así que la detección del crimen o de la mentira forma un área bastante grande en esto. Incluso pueden predecir dónde vas a cometer un crimen, y esto se hace con el propósito de prevenir el terrorismo. Y la excusa para usar esto es que en el futuro estaremos más o menos robotizados en la vida cotidiana.
Implantando lo que ellos quieren, hacernos creer a nosotros. De su manera, ellos creo que nos implantan unas cosas para que nosotros pensamos esas cosas, pero no es lo que nosotros tenemos que pensar de verdad.
Pues no estaría bien, porque cada uno debe desarrollarse como puede.
Pues no tengo ya mucho conocimiento acerca de ella, lo siento mucho.
No tengo noticia de que eso sea posible hoy.
Llamada la vigilancia remota neuronal, la tecnología ya en uso en Estados Unidos, en Reino Unido, España, Suecia, Alemania y Francia, le permite al gobierno ver a través de sus ojos, escuchar sus pensamientos y subir fotos y aromas a su cerebro. Aromas tan reales como si ustedes los hubieran visto y olido en la naturaleza. Ni que decir que los autores pueden oír lo que usted oye porque usted se convierte en una unidad del mainframe central. Ellos pueden cambiar su comportamiento, afectar las funciones de memoria y también las emociones. Esto no es una trama de una novela de una sociedad ficticia. Esto es real y se está llevando a cabo hoy en día, todos los días, por los gobiernos que profesan protegerle a usted de todo mal. Las emisiones electromagnéticas del cerebro pueden ser decodificadas en pensamientos actuales, imágenes y sonidos en el cerebro del sujeto. También se envían códigos complicados y señales del pulso electromagnético para activar los potenciales evocados en el interior del cerebro, generando así los sonidos y las imágenes visuales en los circuitos neuronales. Con sus sistemas de comunicación visual, del habla y auditiva, la vigilancia remota neuronal permite un enlace audiovisual del cerebro a cerebro, un enlace cerebro a computadora. De hecho, pueden potencialmente programar estos chips para hacer que sus ciudadanos se sientan bien todo el tiempo. El objetivo final de la dictadura científica de Huxley sin lágrimas. Soma, la droga del placer personificada, el camino del infierno, el camino hacia nuestro futuro. Magnus, ¿cómo te convertiste en una víctima de esto? ¿Tienes algún cicatriz como prueba?
No. Esta es la pregunta más frecuente. La cuestión es que hace 20 años ya habían hecho implantes a través de la nariz o en el cuello. Y ya entonces era casi imposible reconocer ningún tipo de cicatriz. Hoy en día, solo necesitan darte una inyección en la sangre. Este es el peligro de la nanotecnología, porque cuando llegan al torrente sanguíneo, pasan por diferentes tipos de frecuencias. Luego pasan por el cerebro y se adhieren a las frecuencias concretas. Así que pueden inyectar muchos miles de nanorobots a través de la sangre y es así como te conectas. El problema está también en que mucha gente cree que hay nanopartículas inteligentes en su cerebro y que les han hecho implantes de esta forma. Pero no hay ninguna marca ni ninguna prueba en el cuerpo.
En 2011, un equipo de científicos creó un chip que controla el cerebro y puede ser utilizado como un dispositivo de almacenamiento de memoria a largo plazo. En los experimentos, los científicos han sido capaces de grabar, descargar y transferir recuerdos a otras máquinas con el mismo chip implantado. Esto puede parecer como un descubrimiento revolucionario, pero lo que pocos saben es que el avance de la tecnología trae al mundo un paso más hacia el estado policial mundial y la realidad del control mental absoluto. Más aterrador es el potencial de la aplicación de lo que era solo una fantasía de la ciencia ficción, la policía del pensamiento, donde el gobierno lee recuerdos y los pensamientos de la gente y se puede rehabilitar a estos pensamientos a través de la tortura antes de que alguna vez cometan un delito sobre la base de un análisis informático estadístico que muestra las personas con ciertos tipos de pensamientos propensos a cometer delitos en el futuro. ¿Demasiado exagerado para su gusto? Ya de forma preventiva invadimos naciones y torturamos a presuntos terroristas sin ningún debido proceso legal. Así que la idea de forma preventiva de torturar a personas inocentes es solo un paso más en la destrucción de nuestras libertades civiles. Magnus, me gustaría hablar de otro área de ciencia del cerebro, telepatía sintética. ¿Qué es y cómo funciona?
Telepatía sintética fue la denominación que DARPA utilizó para sí misma. Significa que hablas con tu pensamiento, no con tu lenguaje verbal normal. Entonces los otros pueden leer tus pensamientos y tú puedes comunicarte simplemente pensando. Esta forma de comunicarse es muy difícil en el comienzo, pero se aprende muy rápido. En el futuro, la gente que tiene mucho dinero podrá obtener este tipo de implantes e incluso se podrá clonar recuerdos. Lo que está en la agenda en este momento es la clonación del cerebro humano directamente hacia una supercomputadora. Entonces se podrá clonar la mente humana y eso es algo muy preocupante. Existe en este momento el proyecto británico denominado El Cazador de Almas, impulsado por British Telecom. Se trata de un chip en el cerebro que eventualmente hará a la gente inmortal y esa es la forma mediante la cual descubrirán el resto del universo. Esta investigación ha recibido miles de millones de libras esterlinas y es fácil entender que esta es la única manera de descubrir el resto del universo y volverse inmortal, porque no necesitaremos más alimentos ni agua. Entonces, seremos una máquina que podrá ir hacia cualquier dirección a través del universo para explorarlo. Hay una apuesta entre diferentes estructuras de la sociedad para llegar a este objetivo y en ser los primeros en poder utilizar esto en ese sentido. Pero el Cazador de Almas y el chip de British Telecom están tan avanzados que de alguna manera y que lo que buscan es poder programar los genes y prevenir, por ejemplo, enfermedades genéticas y cosas por el estilo.
Puede ser. Creo que sí, no sé, no te puedo decir mucho, pero creo que sí.
Pues para adquirir información de que no debas saber, de gente que tiene secretos y meterse en su mente y averiguarlo.
Todo lo que nos rodea en el medio ambiente con una corriente eléctrica tiene un flujo magnético a su alrededor que emite ondas de frecuencia electromagnética EMF. La estimulación cerebral ha estado en proceso de desarrollo desde el programa MACULTRA de control mental de principios de los años 50, que incluyó la investigación neurológica en radiación y la investigación y el desarrollo bioeléctrico. El mapeo cerebral, generado por ordenadores de NSA, la agencia de espionaje más grande de Estados Unidos, puede monitorear continuamente toda la actividad eléctrica en el cerebro de manera continua. La NSA graba los resultados de descifrar mapas cerebrales de cientos de miles de personas con fines de seguridad nacional. IMF, estimulación cerebral, también se utiliza en secreto por los militares para el enlace cerebro a computadoras, como por ejemplo en los aviones.